Hey, what's up guys, welcome to another exciting video in the tessellation series. Now this video is meant for inspiration and I'm going to share with you some observations and some of the interesting shapes that I have recently discovered, and I'm going to share with you just to inspire you to try something different from that regular square shape that we have been working on in previous 2 to 3 parts of this series. Now just to recap that we have discussed the basics, in which we discuss the methods of translation, reflection and rotation that we use for creating these tessellation, and we have created detailed videos on each of these methods. So these are the 3 methods, and the shape that we usually used was this simple square shape. So I just draw it here. So this is the shape that we used on all of these 3 methods. Now just recently I have found out that we can use slightly different shapes and use these methods to create tessellations. So what I mean by this is that, so previously we have this square shape and it was like that. Now another way you can just rotate this square shape. So if I just rotate it like that, we can still create tessellations using these methods, because still we have all the sides of the same length and all the angles are the same as it was in the previous rotation, like that. So if it's like that or if it is like that, it still stays the same. Now it will just give you a slightly more edge or slightly more different orientation for your design element. So the design element that you would create in this regular position of the square or the regular orientation would be slightly different, but if you create something like that, you will be creating something slightly different. You will have slightly more room towards the top and the bottom, and you might be able to just make it look just cool and slightly different than those regular square shaped tessellations. Now there is one thing that you will have to keep in mind. So let me just rotate it back here. So this is the regular shape of the square. Let me just make it 300 by 300 pixels points, and so that you can see what I mean. So I'm just going to create a copy of this square at this moment by pressing Ctrl J, and then I'm just going to rotate this copy as I rotated it before, like that. Now you notice that when I rotate my copy of the square, now it goes beyond the edges of the base square. Let me just recolor it to something different so you can see. So this red one was our basic square, the base square, the basic orientation of the square, you can say, and this black one is when we have rotated it. Now once we rotated it, we can see that there is slight part of that square that is going beyond the edges or the boundaries of our basic square. So if you are meant to create those repeating patterns, you might want to bring this square back inside that. So you need to press the shift key and make sure that the top part is inside that, and then the bottom part is inside that, and this is how it would look. And then you can just use those methods that I discussed here. So you can slide it like that, place it here, and similarly the other ways you can do. So that was the basic square in this form. Another interesting thing that I want to share here with you, and that is a non-square shape. It still has 4 sides, so it's still a quadrilateral, meaning 4-sided polygon. So if I just make it like that, we can still use it, because still we have all the angles of 90 degrees, but the only thing that changed here is the side length. So the opposite sides have the same length, but all sides don't have the same length. So only the opposite sides have the same length. So if I just try to tile it here, so you can move it here like that. Although it is not snapping, I might have to check these snapping options, but anyway, it is just to show you that you can do it. And then if I just create a copy of this one and move it here, you can see that I can simply tile it. It's not very difficult. It still tiles perfectly like that. So which means that we can use this rectangle shape as well to create tessellation. But now you will not be able to use this rotation method on these rectangle shapes, because rotation method requires all these sides to have the same length. So you will be able to use this translation and the reflection method on this rectangle shape. You will not be able to use the rotation method. So translation method means simply you can simply create a copy of it, slide it down, and the same way copy of this one and then slide it horizontally, so as it fits perfectly, which means you can use the translation and the reflection method. Now there is another interesting thing that we can do with this rectangle shape. Let me just convert it into curves. So if I just select these top parts, these top points, and slightly move them like that, now by moving it towards the right or the left, I have not changed the length of these sides. So the top side, this one has the same length as this bottom one. Similarly, the left and the right sides have the same lengths. So it means that just by changing the angle slightly, just moving them slightly left or right, I have just changed the angles. Now the angles are no more 90 degrees, but the lengths are the same. So in this case, you can also use the translation and the reflection method. You will not be able to use the rotation because that requires all sides to be of the same size. So that is kind of limitation here, but still you can use these two methods to create interesting patterns. Now I'll create a detailed video on this topic, on this shape, slightly slanted. It's called, I think, parallelogram. So maybe that video will be available next week. So you might not be able to try this shape on your own because it requires some precise calculations, but you can definitely try that rectangle shape because that does not require any kind of specific calculations. Okay, so we have now discussed the two shapes here. The third thing that I would like to share with you, and let me just create a polygon here using this polygon tool, and let's just create a polygon and let's just make it 6 sides. So in the first video, the very first video in this series, I have discussed that we can arrange this hexagon shape in a perfect tessellation, in a perfect pattern. There will be no gaps between these shapes. So if I just slide it here, I can just match it here, and similarly I can just match it here and then bring these two down and simply match it here. So once, although it's not fitting perfectly now, just to illustrate it, the method, I'm just explaining it here. So it means that we can just tile them perfectly without any gaps. Now let me show you another interesting thing. So this hexagon has 6 sides, okay, but previously we have been working with 4-sided polygon. What if we just convert this 6-sided hexagon into 4-sided polygon, meaning just deleting 2 of the sides and convert it into 4-sided polygon? So which I mean that, let me just show you how you can do it. So if I just create a vertical line, just simply align it at the center, press Ctrl J to copy it, and then align it, rotate it horizontally. Now we get the center of this hexagon. So I can just select that hexagon, bring any of the points, let's say this point, towards the center, at the center, and as soon as it snaps, I'm just going to leave it. So still we have that basic red shape, 6 sides. So 2 sides on the top, 2 sides left and right, and 2 sides toward the bottom. Still we have 6 sides. What if we delete this side, this point, this corner point? Now we have 1, 2, 3, and 4 sides. Now the problem with this 4-sided polygon is that all the sides, actually the opposite side, this one and this one, has different lengths, and this one and this one, although it has the same length, but they are not pointing in the same direction. One is going this way and the other is going this way, which means that we cannot use this polygon. Although we can tile this polygon, but will not be able to use these translation or the reflection methods on this type of polygon. And let's say what happens, what if I select this point and delete it? Now see what happens here. Now you can see that we have this side and this side of the same length, this side and this side of the same length. In fact, all of the sides are of the same length, which means that now we can use our rotation, reflection, and translation method on this kind of polygon as well. So even if it is not oriented like that, even if let's say it is oriented like this, like this horizontally, or maybe it's oriented like this vertically, we can still tile it. Let me show you how. So you can place it here, like that, and then I can just simply place the other one here. So let me just copy it. So like that we can create a pattern like that. So if I just rotate it similarly like that, we can still tile them and they tile perfectly. Another interesting way that we can use this, and we can still create interesting patterns, and that is to just keep it in this slanted rotation. So if I just keep it in this slanted rotation, select this one, just copy it by pressing Ctrl J, and then let's say if I just rotate it along this top corner point, I rotate it like that, and then select this one. Now let's say I want to rotate it like that. Now press Ctrl J and make it like that. So we get this kind of like a cube shape. And interesting thing about this cube shape is that you can tile it. You can create perfect looking pattern using this cube shape. Now let's say what you try a tessellation method on this kind of this kind of rotation, or this kind of shape, four-sided shape, in this kind of angle and this kind of orientation. So if you try translation, reflection, or rotation on this, you will get slightly different interesting pattern that will look like the arrangement of cubes. Just try it and see how it works. Although I have not tried this, I know that it will work, and I might try it in the future, but just to inspire you at this moment, you can use this as well. Let me show you another interesting thing. So I'm going to use this polygon again. Let's just maybe make it 6 sides. Yeah, actually let's just make it not 6 sides, 8 sides, and like that. Now again, if I just place this polygon here at the center and try to convert it into a 4-sided polygon. So currently it has 8 sides, so I'm just going to convert it into curves, and I'm going to bring one of the sides just at the center here. So we have this side here, 1, 2, let's say this one 3, and we need other side here 4, which means that I can delete this point, delete this one, and this one to get this 4-sided polygon. Now this 4-sided polygon, now it looks like we are able to arrange it in a perfect pattern without any kind of, you can say that, without any kind of gap, but it is not possible. Let me show you what I mean. So if I just put it here and press Ctrl J to copy it, and then rotate it like that to fix it, place it here, then there's another copy like that. So we have this 8 sides. So what if I just try to now rotate these ones? So I'm going to just group them and maybe rotate it at this angle, pressing Ctrl J. So if I just try to rotate it like that, I can place it here. Let's see what happens if I just try to rotate around this axis. So I'm going to press Ctrl J. Let's just try to rotate it at this axis, and now when I try to rotate it, it fit perfectly with this one, but you can see that we have this overlapping area in these two, kind of like octagons. So which means that we cannot arrange these perfectly. When we will try to arrange it, either we will have some kind of overlap or we will have a gap. Let me show you what I mean. So if I just let's say rotate this one around here again by pressing Ctrl J, let's see what happens. Okay, let's just delete this. Let's just rotate this one around here. So press Ctrl J, rotate it here, and let's see if it is placed here, perfectly aligned with this one. And now select this one, press Ctrl J to copy it, and let's just rotate it around this area. So you can see that we can tile these octagons in the form of, I have just divided into 4, but technically they are now octagons. So when we try to arrange these octagons, we get this kind of gap, square shaped gap in it, which is not filled with our design. So what will happen if we try to create a pattern, a tessellation pattern using this four-sided shape that is technically called a kite. So what if we try to create a tessellation using let's say translation method, or let's say the reflection method, and try to create a pattern like this. So although I would say that you will not be able to, I think, use this reflection and translation method, you will only be able to use this rotation method on these kind of kites, and I'll explain that in a minute. But you will not be able to fill the document perfectly. You will always have a gap. So one thing that you can do is to create something, use that gap as a negative space, and try to give it a meaning, try to create something kind of details in it to create a different kind of structure. I hope you are able to understand what I mean, but if you are not, I might try this thing again in any of my future videos. Now this video, again, as I'm going to say, that it is just for inspiration, just to share some of the observations that I have while trying different things, these kind of shapes. So I just wanted to share with you, maybe you can try it on your own. So you cannot use that as well, but you can slightly use, if you can slightly think about it and try to use that square, that empty space, as a negative space, and try to create a character or a shape or a meaningful character in it. Now let me show you another thing. So this was 8-sided polygon, the same thing that you can do with another even sides, let's say 12-sided polygon. So if I just create a polygon here, and let's just make it 12 sides. So again, we can use two of the sides. Let me just bring it, convert it into curves. So if I just do the same thing, bring point here and delete all other points, just try to keep and make it 4-sided polygon. Let's see what happens. We get the same kind of kite shape here, but slightly different. Properties of the kite shape is, let's see if I just rotate it here, is that these two sides are of the same length, and this one and this one, these two sides are of the same length. So in the rotation method, we know that we need to have two adjacent sides of the same length. So it means that this one and this one is the same length. So it means that I can create any shape here or manipulate this line and rotate it along this axis or this corner point on this line, and we can get a rotation tessellation. Similarly, we can use this one and then make that shape appear here on this line, and we get a tessellation. So we can use the rotation tessellation on these kite shapes, and but we will not be able to perfectly fill the document. We will always have some shape as a negative space or an empty space appear in our document, which we can use to create some kind of slightly different character, slightly different variation in our pattern. And hopefully you are able to understand that. If not, you can just let me know in the comments below. I'll work on these shape and show you the process of creating perfect tessellation patterns. So just to recap that video, we have discussed this square shape, then we discussed what if we just rotate that square shape like that, we'll be able to create a perfect pattern. Then we have discussed that we will have, if we have this rectangle shape, we'll also be able to create perfect reflection and translation patterns. And what if then we discussed that what we have if we have this rectangle shape, but instead of like that we turn it into a parallelogram like that, we will be able to create a pattern. Yes, we will be able to create a pattern using this shape as well. And the last, let me just make this side a kite, like it's not perfect, but still let's assume that it is perfect. So what if we have a shape like that, like this one, we will be able to create a pattern. Yes, we will be able to create a pattern like that as well, using this shape as well, but with a gap which we can use to manipulate. And then we discuss that hexagon shape. So before I create a video on this shape that I'm planning to create for next week, I would like you to try these shapes and try to create tessellations using these shapes, and try to figure out how you can create some interesting designs using this rectangle shape or maybe this kind of looking shape. And if you want to share that with me, you can share that with me in the Facebook group that I have. You can find the link in the description below. So guys, that's all I wanted to share with you here in this video. And let me last show you. I was just trying that rectangle shape tessellation. So I was just placed them here, and now I was just about to manipulate these lines. So you can see that I can manipulate this line and create a unique looking pattern using this. And you can always create some interesting design. So you can see that I have used a reflection method on this rectangle shape, and you can see that I am able to get a perfect fitting tile from this. So you can do it yourself, and just be inspired and try to be creative, and hopefully you will get some interesting designs using these shapes and these tips that I have shared in this video. Now if you have any questions regarding this video, you can ask me in the comments below, and I'll try my best to answer those questions. And hopefully I'll see you in the next video, and thank you for watching.